My name's John Rawls, and it's a real pleasure to welcome you to this symposium on food systems, nutrition, and the microbiome. This symposium has been made possible through the support of a number of different sponsoring units here at Duke University, and they're all listed here. I'm going to provide a few opening remarks just to sort of set the stage for the symposium today. So this began about a year and a half ago with a set of conversations that were happening here at Duke around what our local strengths were in terms of exploring food systems, to exploring nutrition, metabolic health, metabolic disease, and the microbiome. And Kelly Brownell is going to give us an introduction to food systems in just a few minutes in the first talk, but just to kind of give a brief primer. So when we talk about food systems, we're talking about the full cycle of agriculture, of harvesting food, of processing food, of distributing it, how it finds its way into the stores that we use, and then nutrition and metabolic health that is supported by that, and then of course the waste streams that flow from that. It's important for us to consider these food systems for a number of different reasons, aside from supporting the health of the whole human population. By tackling food systems, we're kind of invited and sort of forced to tackle some of the largest scientific and social challenges that we're facing in our time. A large portion of humanity is still suffering from undernutrition. This is a global problem. Also, people are finding access to the wrong kinds of foods too often, which leads to diseases like obesity and type 2 diabetes. If we want to understand those processes, we also need an ever increasingly improved understanding of the integrative nutritional physiology of not just of human beings, but also of the agricultural animals and even the crops that we raise. So those are major challenges. And along the way, in order to maintain a food supply that can meet the needs of a growing population, challenges around genetic engineering of crops and food animals, as well as sustainable land use and climate change, really become a part of the challenge that we face as a scientific community. These are all subjects that we're going to tackle today, most notably the question of nutritional physiology. But one of the major themes that we're going to be wrestling with today is another scientific challenge that's mixed into this, which is the microbiome. Now, most of us in the room might normally think about the microbiome and its role in sort of human or animal health. But as I'm sure you can appreciate, in that food system cycle, the microbiome plays a role at many different important points, from agriculture to how food is processed and distributed, how it affects metabolic health, how the waste streams that are produced through this process dealt with, and how our natural resources are managed in order to promote sustainable use. So throughout the day today, I invite all of us to keep a very sort of big, open mind on how these themes and some of these technologies might interact with each other. And it's also a good time for us to be considering this because the NIH is certainly trying to put some renewed emphasis into the realm of nutrition. This is a draft strategic plan that was released by the NIH Nutrition Research Task Force this past year, which lays out a very diverse array of research objectives which touch upon nutrition and metabolic disease in a number of different ways. And I think Chris Newgard, who's in the audience here, had a hand in drafting this and could probably describe some of these objectives in greater detail if anyone's interested. But within this new initiative, we are expecting a number of new funding opportunities in this space. And so with all that in mind, the goal of this symposium is to try to explore the frontiers of these interactions between food systems, between human and animal and plant nutrition, the microbiome, how it sort of filters into many different parts of this cycle, and then importantly, also the ethical and policy implications, which are really must be evolved hand in hand with the science as we move this forward. And so one of the challenges that I kind of put to the speakers today, and we'll see if everyone does it, was for them to consider responding to this prompt somewhere in their talk, which is, what are the greatest opportunities for advancing knowledge and improving human and environmental health? And then what are some of the greatest obstacles we face towards that? This is a good time and a good place for us to be considering this. North Carolina is one of the nation's largest agricultural states. And in the Research Triangle, we have one of the strongest concentrations of research enterprise in the country. And that combination really affords us a unique perspective and opportunity, and maybe even a mandate to really use the talents and the resources that we have here as an academic community to address some of these challenges. And so with that kind of broad mindset, I really encourage all of us to kind of be thinking creatively, look for connections between different projects and different talks that you hear today, and hopefully identify some new collaborators that you might be able to pursue things with in the future. We tried to crudely break this up into 3 different sessions. So the first session is going to focus on food systems. Kelly Brownell is going to give us an introduction to that. And then we're going to think a little bit about how the microbiome affects plants and how it might affect other types of relevant production, and some technologies that we can bring to bear to explore the microbiome and its roles in these different processes. We'll have a session on how nutrition and the microbiome interact to promote human health. And then in the last session, we'll explore a little bit more about different therapeutic or interventional strategies that lean on microbiome science, and then close with a talk from Jennifer Kuzma from NC State around some of the societal and policy issues around microbiome science.